I guess, the significance of work, and that it's part of my identity as a man, which is true of many men, and that it can be as significant as a relationship. And that's difficult to say out loud, but it's important to recognize. Now I'm going to go back to the part of my life when I was a family practitioner, because I often saw men don't generally seek help, so they don't often come and see a doctor. But as they get older, because it's important with regard to checking colon, prostate, those sorts of things, they would start coming to see me. So that there actually would be the beginning of a relationship before they were seeking retirement. And if I started getting wind of the fact that they were about to retire, whether they were 60, 65 or older, I would work with them to begin to appreciate what that might be like. So I would ask them, what does their work mean to them at the moment? What will they be sorry to leave behind? How do they use their work to define themselves? How have they contributed? And how have they prepared on the day after to be at home all the time? Because likely, and for the men I was seeing at that time, many of them had wives who hadn't worked in the same degree, had stayed at home. So what's it going to be like for you to be at home all day, every day with your wife? And many of them would say, I can't wait. And 6 months later, they'd be back in my office and say, I don't know what to do with my time. This isn't the way I thought it would be. I've lost my sense of self. You can only play golf so often. And those were the features. So I think one of the really essential ingredients is preparation. The other part that I really feel is very significant to many men throughout their lives, that whenever we're in transition, there's change. And when there's change, there's loss. And when there's loss, there's grief. And grief is definitely something we never want to experience. And often we resist being in the presence of those who are in grief. And grief is a very complex emotion. It has in it sadness, anger, sometimes rage, fear, lethargy, tiredness and fatigue, isolation, fear that life will never be good again. So that if I help men to understand that sometime in the next 3 to 6 to 9, 12 months, this might be part of your experience, it's normal. Even if it's all good, it's still a change, and there may be ingredients of grief present in your everyday life. And it's easy to confuse or mistake some of those for depression, because they're very depression-like. And that they can lead to depression, and they can be components of depression and grief at the same time. And I really discourage them from sliding into the isolation part. So as a family physician, I could always make an appointment. I want to see you in 2 weeks, in 2 weeks, in 2 weeks. When you're working with groups of men, you have to just depend on their willingness to keep coming back. What would I want the world of men to know? Right? And that depression is serious. It affects individuals and it affects their relationships. It must be taken seriously. Medication is just one avenue. Right? There are other components of depression that can also be addressed in other ways. And because depression itself also lends itself well to people feeling isolated, to come together in a group could be the beginning of healing, repair, restoring, whatever words you want to use, of coming back to who you want to be or who you might have been before that. And that for men, it's really important to look in their lives for evidence of shame, of grief, of anger, and of fear. Things that we don't want to really look at because it makes us feel less than men. That, however, is the very risk then of the depression or the grief worsening. So it's that having the courage, and courage cannot exist without fear, so it's there. Having the courage, despite the fear that you want to keep silent, having the courage to ask for help.